So a couple days ago I finally got around to installing this fairing from Vector Batwing Fairings, and this is a 2017 Heritage Classic. And if you're one of those people with a 10-second attention span and you just want to know the cut and dry results, yeah, I highly recommend it. It's been fantastic. I have no regrets whatsoever. Now, back to the story. So if you're putting this on a motorcycle similar to what I have, this might seem a little redundant for some of you guys, but just so you're aware, in case you don't have one, this is the windshield that originally came with this bike. And the way Harley does this, it's pretty slick. There's just a metal bracket on each side of the windshield, and there's a couple cutouts, and those two cutouts, what they do is they slide over the top of two bolts. So if you go back to the forks, there is a bolt on the top, and there is a bolt on, the heck is it, on the bottom, right there, okay? And the way that this thing works is Vector Batwing, they manufactured a bracket just like the one that goes on the windshield so that it functions the same way. And what you do, again, if you don't have a windshield, that bracket, it just simply hangs over the top of a rubber or plastic grommet, whatever it is, and then on the top it does essentially the same thing. It just kind of hooks over that bolt. Now, I did have one major issue when I went to install this, and I was kind of irritated at first, but just due to the way the angle of this thing works when you're trying to install it, I had to tilt the fairing towards me. But what was happening is I didn't have enough clearance behind these lights to tilt it towards me in order for it to drop down far enough onto that bottom bolt. And so I thought initially, well, no big deal, I'll just take these two lights off, but it's not that easy. These lights are all part of one assembly, and that whole entire assembly is held on by those top two bolts. So at first I thought, I'm not going to be able to get this done. But then what I realized was, if I just removed the top bolt on each side, what it allowed me to do was drop the bracket onto the bottom bolt and swing it forward. And initially I just didn't have enough clearance to get over the top of this bolt and get on that one where I needed to be, but by pulling this bolt out on each side on the top, I just kind of blew past the opening temporarily and then dropped it on down so that it seated fully on the bottom bolt, and then just tilted it back forward and put that bolt back in. And of course, that's a little easier said than done. There's a lot of crap in the way. There's a couple washers in that grommet, and there's a spacer, and you got to get all that stuff. You know, you got to have like 3 hands and 20 fingers to get it done. But anyhow, once I got it on, I was actually really happy that I had to do it this way, because this thing is rock solid. I mean, it fits like a glove. I've had it out on the road, I don't know, 3 or 4 times now, well up above highway speeds, and it doesn't rattle or shake or shimmy. I mean, it's for all intents and purposes, you think it was a factory fairing. The stereo and the speakers, initially I was going to buy the fairing empty and just put my own components in, but once I started pricing all this stuff individually, I mean, honestly, it was a pretty good deal just to have them do it. And then I finally decided I might as well. I mean, that's what these guys do for a living, so they know exactly how everything needs to be hooked up. So I bought it all put together, and the only thing that I had to assemble at all, and it was no big deal, is the windshield, because they send you a tinted one and a clear one. But I mean, other than that, and you know, installing it onto the bike itself, I didn't have to do anything to it. Now, if there were a couple things I would change if I were Vector, is on the right side there's a port for a USB, and over here on the driver's side there's also a port for a 12 volt, and they're handy. I mean, that's for sure, but the only problem is they've got them mounted so low that if you have something plugged in and you kick the forks all the way one direction or the other, it ends up hitting the tank if you don't unplug it. So personally, I think it'd be a lot handier for them to just mount them up here so they're out of the way, but you know, whatever. And then just to be fair, the only other thing I noticed, which is, again, it's no big deal, you know, I think they could probably do the fit just a little bit cleaner. You can see some of the backside of the exposed fiberglass, but I mean, that's getting really nitpicky. So overall, super happy with it. This radio and the speakers sound fantastic. I mean, I've got Vance and Hines basically straight pipes on it, so it's plenty loud, and I don't have any issues at all. Hearing the radio, even at highway speed, does a great job. So as far as the finish, it's fantastic. This has not been painted. This is just the way it came to me, and the camera doesn't quite do it justice. I mean, it looks really good. It looks like a professional paint job. I'm real happy with it. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Yes, I think it was money well spent. The other thing I noticed is it made a dramatic difference in the wind buffering. I don't get near as much impact on my head, you know, that I did with my my windshield down here, and they're both just about the same height. The other thing I'm getting ready to do right now, just because I live in the Midwest, is there's a pretty big opening here between the handlebars and the bottom of the fairing, and that thing kind of acts as like a ram air system. So, you know, a couple mornings that I rode to work and it was cold, it was you know, it felt like it was just blasting me straight on into the face. So I'm gonna make a panel just to put in here to block that for when it's cold. But yeah, that's about it. So anyhow, thanks.